All right, let's talk 32. Let's work our way up here. Pick 32, we just talked about it. Mike Tomlin made a huge deal about it. Humongous deal about pick 32. He could not stop talking about pick 32, actually. Like it was crazy how much this guy was just like, I am so excited to have the first pick in the draft. Because you got to remember, like Mike Tomlin's never had a losing season. So he's never had a pick high enough to feel, confident in what you could do with it. Like he's never been in a situation where it's like, man, people want this pick. It's always like, yeah, 17, if somebody falls, they'll go get him or whatever. But for the most part, no, that's not the situation. To have 32, we've talked about this so much. It's probably the most valuable pick that the Steelers have. You could do so many things with it. So the big question is, do you think that they move it? And if you do think that they move it, when? Like, do you think it's between round 1 or round 2? Do you think it's earlier? Do you think it's during round 1? When do you think that trade goes down, if you see one coming?
So I got to be honest, I don't see one coming. I would say probably 75-25. I'd put the odds at that they keep it. I just think it's too valuable, and I think they're going to absolutely field offers, like they're saying. They are actively inviting them, but I don't think the return that they would get would be as valuable as just what they could pick there.
Yeah.
That said, on the 25% chance that they do trade it, I think you're going to wake up, on what would that be? Friday morning?
Friday morning.
Yeah, you're going to wake up on Friday morning and the Steelers are going to have a different pick if they do trade it. I think it would be real because essentially this, like we said, this is essentially a first round pick because the Dolphins don't have their pick. I think they are in such a great position to see what happens in the first round and then make a decision to accumulate more picks or whatever, because everyone's going to have a beat. They're going to be able to go to bed on Thursday night and sleep on it a little bit and say, okay, here's who went, who's still available. And you kind of get a sense of where teams are going to go based off of their first round picks. So I think that they will kind of take their time. And then once the dust settles on the first round, start saying, okay, who wants this one? What can you give me? So and so on.
Okay, I like that. I was not expecting that. I was not expecting for really anybody to say they're not going to trade it. But it does, it makes a lot of sense. Just like we said, like the value and the guys that are sliding. I mean, Brian Brzee was a name that we were worried was going to go much higher than 17 in Derek. Derek did a full round mock draft that he was supposed to put out in Complex. Things happened over a Complex. So, my condolences to everybody out there. But he's about to put it out at noon, actually, on All Steelers. And I was going through it, and Brian Brzee is like 21, 22 or something like that. And I was like, damn, that's a slide. And then, Nolan Smith slides, and Lucas Van Ness went after the Steelers at one point. Like, these names are going to be there that at one point we saw as like potential top 10 picks. And if the Steelers have an opportunity to take one at 32, that's more valuable. It's not like you're like, oh man, this is my only second round pick. You get to do it again in 15 more picks. Like you could just draft whoever you were thinking about sliding back with at 49, or you can move up from there. You still have your 4th and 5th round next year, and the Steelers never end a draft with the 4th and 5th round pick the year following. It just doesn't happen. The possibilities are definitely there. I'm under the notion that they are going to move it. And I'll give you guys a little sneak peek into my final mock draft tomorrow. But if Brzee's there, I think that that's definitely a name to watch. I think that he's on their radar. He makes a lot of sense for the Steelers. I was talking to Cam Hayward yesterday, and he really likes him. He thinks that he's a very good player, has that inside-outside versatility that the Steelers are looking for. I think that they trade back into the first round, into the end of the first round. They use 32 to trade back into the first round. I don't know what else they give up. That things get complicated there. Maybe a 4th next year or 5th next year.
Yeah, I was going to say that seems difficult to have to get back into the first round coming from 32.
I don't think they moved that far. Like, I think maybe, maybe a couple of picks, or maybe they do wait, depending. But I think that like that 25 mark, give or take, is where they're gonna eyeball it and see who's available and see what the trend is, and they have an idea of who's drafting where. And I think that they go get Darnell Washington. I do.
Okay.
I really, really do. I think that Mike Tomlin's little tight ends, the tight ends are phenomenal. tight ends are the best thing in this draft. That got me. Like all the lights went off in my head. My sirens were as loud as could be. And I was just like, there's no, like, why would you even think about that? Like, why are you doing homework on tight ends? And then I started thinking, and, I didn't spend time with the tight ends at the NFL Combine. There was no point in doing so. But at the Senior Bowl, I talked to all the tight ends and not one of them. And we talked to everybody at the Senior Bowl by the end of that week.
Right.
And every single person we talked to Mike Tomlin or the Pittsburgh Steelers in some capacity. Every single one. No tight ends. Not one tight end that I talked to had any conversation with Mike Tomlin or anybody with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So what type of homework are you doing on these tight ends? Like, yeah, they're good, but like, are you just scouting them in your leisure so that you have an idea of what's going on? I think Darnell Washington makes a ton of sense. Like a ton of sense. If you really thought that you had 3 tight ends, which I still fall under the theory and the belief that Connor Hayward is not going to be a tight end this season. I think he's going to be a fullback / slot receiver / halfback / wherever you need to put him on the field. He's just going to be out there doing his thing. I think that the Steelers would love to bring in a guy like Darnell Washington because he's an immediate upgrade as a blocking tight end. The Steelers desperately need a blocking tight end, especially in Matt Canada's offense with how much they try to utilize 12 and 13 personnel. And on top of that, you brought Allen Robinson in and you raved about his red zone capabilities and how proven he is in the red zone and how much that's going to help Kenny Pickett. You're telling me that a 6'7" tight end is not going to help Kenny Pickett? I mean, Matt Spaeth made an entire career out of it in Pittsburgh as a backup tight end who was 6'6", and he just caught touchdowns. That's all he did. He didn't do anything. He wasn't even on the football field entire drives, and then he would go in the red zone. And Darnell Washington's way better than that, but I think I think in Mike Tomlin's eyes, he's looking at that and going, that is a quarterback's best friend, is a really good, tall tight end. And to have somebody who complements Pat Freiermuth, because that's who Pat Freiermuth is. Like, you need a compliment from Pat Freiermuth. He's not your all-around tight end, unfortunately. But if Pat could be your number 1 and Darnell Washington could be your number 2, and then you got Zach Gentry coming off the bench, I don't know. I think Mike Tomlin would be so excited about that move.
Yeah. I mean, Darnell Washington is a weapon. Like, don't get it twisted. Like, yeah, he's a good blocker, but I mean, he can catch too, and he can run. And you mentioned the red zone capabilities. That's a great pick, and if they're able to do that, I'm all for it. That would be awesome. It depends. Like, I don't even honestly, like, if you're dipping into next year's pick to move up to get him.
Yeah,
like, yeah,
I think
you do that every
give up a 4th. Yeah, a 4th next year and 32 to go up and get Darnell. You just got 2 first-round guys that you feel really good about, and you did nothing. Like, you kept 49. I don't think you're going to have to give up anything huge to move back into the first round, especially that late, like with 32 and the value it holds. And I think that teams are going to look at it just like the Steelers are going to look at it. If I have control of that 32nd pick for 24 hours, the opportunity is endless. So even if I don't give up a lot, I think it's worth it for a team who wants to have more draft picks, And a lot of those teams, like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, aren't a team that's hunting for a Super Bowl right now. Like they got a lot of work to do. And if they're thinking, well, let's just add some draft picks, I mean, I think that's a spot for them 100%. I think, the Baltimore Ravens, you'd never trade it within the division, but there's a lot of those teams in that back end that you're just like, maybe they go up and get Darnell Washington, or maybe he slides out of the first round, but I don't think the Steelers are going to take that chance. Yeah. I think they go get him. I'm actually very excited about that one.
Well, yeah. And you keep hearing about, at least I've seen a ton of reports that no one has 32, 31 players that they've given first round grades.
Yeah, I saw that, like 20. Everybody's got like 20 guys.
Right. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if there are a ton of people trying to trade out of the first round and accumulate some draft picks because they don't really like any of the guys in that, I guess, like 20 to 31 or 32 range.
Yeah. And especially like if you're not that high on this draft class in general, you'll take next year's picks, and you'll feel very confident about next year's picks. And I think it's going to come in handy for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm telling you, Darnell Washington's a name to watch. With that said, let's talk sleepers. I'll go outside of Darnell Washington when I'm up, obviously.